This is my story. Now this is my story. I come from the outer reaches of Andromeda. Imagine planet Earth, the solar system, the Milky Way, your galaxy. I come from another galaxy, a blue one, way, way beyond your world. Where I come from is the wild blue yonder. Our star was dying. It was like an ice age, but much more severe. We had to move, we had to leave. Whole armadas of spaceships set out. They all dispersed into the universe. I don't know where they are. I guess they're all lost. A few made it to your planet, planet Earth. A few of us arrived early. It was a few minutes our time, but on Earth time, it was 100 years too early. They came in out of the sky, and man, were they greeted. What happened to them after that, I don't know. But it wasn't all great on this planet. You got homesick and desperate. One of us tried to commit suicide. He was spared. You know, our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers were fine scientists, but the journey was long and boring, and when we got here hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later, those of us who arrived here just sucked. I came in with the third group, and we had a lot of big plans. We knew we had to make a big impression, so we decided to build this capital city, one that would rival D.C. This looked great because two train lines converge right here. Over here, we built this to be the mall, the main shopping center. And over here was to be the Supreme Court. And over here was to be Congress. And down there, the Pentagon. And way, way, way at the end there was the great Andromeda Memorial. But the whole thing sucked. Nobody came, nobody settled, nobody shopped. You see aliens as these technologically advanced super beings who destroy New York City in 2 minutes flat. Well, I hate to say this, but we aliens all suck. Look. We're failures. Look, DC. I guess we're just failures. This whole thing makes me sad. Really makes me sad. Our only success story was a man who used his knowledge of the sky and flying machines. He became chairman of the Strategic Planning Committee at the Pentagon.
In retrospect, it might be said that aviation itself served a very small part in the result of the World War I conflict. However, it did prove itself. That is, it was easy to recognize that with proper equipment, at another later time, aviation might become a real instrument of military warfare.
First, I thought I was going places as I was accepted into the CIA, but I found nothing there but a bunch of people only interested in their careers. I never got promoted. I kept trying to tell them that I knew some things, that I knew quite some things, but they wouldn't listen, and that made me very angry. So now, I stand before you ready to tell all. I was involved in the Roswell recovery. When that thing landed 50 years ago, they didn't know what it was, so they stashed it in some silo underground, and they kept lying that it was just some media invention. Now comes this. 50 years later, they dig it up, and they decide, with the help of advanced technology, that they're going to take another look. That was a big mistake. They should not have done that. From the start, that convoy had a very ominous feel to it. They shut out the world. No press, no TV cameras, no photos. This film is the only record which they made for their secret files. What happened inside had far-reaching consequences, and you don't even know about it. Everything was hermetically sealed. Man, it was ultra clean in there. Toxic waste outfits for the men. Even the truck was sealed in plastic. They had a hunch that something dangerous might be lurking. What they didn't know was that it came from our planet. It was one of our probes we sent ahead of our armada. But there was microbic life attached to it. Life that was unknown on planet Earth. And what they also didn't know was that while they filmed this here, something was seeping out, invisible, secret, potentially lethal, seeping into the few patches of bare skin, and these scientists would carry it out into the world. They scrambled to quarantine and barely succeeded. There was panic, and so they hatched a secret plot. They sent out a group of astronauts. Their mission? Find a hospitable place out there for human habitation. Find something, anything that could be an alternative to Earth. The astronauts were told that this mission would extend to the boundaries of our solar system, but no one could have foretold of the larger, more ominous voyage that lay ahead. It would turn out to be some sort of a one-way ticket. And this is the film record transmitted back to Mission Control. It has been kept locked away all these years. As time dragged on, they were still cautiously orbiting planet Earth. Their mission was going nowhere. They needed a way to reach further. The ground crew encouraged this, even though the spread of the alien microbes turned out to be not such a big deal. It was mostly contained. Still, they wanted the astronauts to keep going, to find a safe haven just in case. They were in for a rude awakening. They did not know how hostile it was out there. See, I could have told them. I know all about it. The astronauts decided to send out a space probe to explore the outer fringes of the solar system. It could radio back images from the planets it encountered. They named the probe Galileo. They waited weeks, they waited months, and then these images came back. Images that proved that there was no hospitable place anywhere nearby. It was clear now that there was nothing nearby. On the ground, they knew they needed a bolder plan, a trip beyond our immediate horizons. For the mathematicians, it was only a question of a different trajectory.
The potential energy doesn't change, so that's just zero. This velocity thing says that this derivative comes out to be v delta v.
It just required the gravity assist from Venus and a flyby of Jupiter. It looked doable.
If we look at our, our standard vis viva equation here, the key is going to be getting the right V infinity at Venus. So we're going to need enough. We're going to still need enough performance from the spacecraft so that we can go below the orbit of Venus enough so that the V infinity at Venus is high enough that when we have to come up with the velocity needed to get us on out to Jupiter, that will work.
I guess we could use this to look at leaving the solar system. For example, this is the sun, the Earth going around it. Instead of thinking of this as being a fixed plane with the sun in the center and the Earth going around, let's just draw an axis and rotate the plane with the Earth. So now the Earth looks like it's fixed. Now we're working in a rotating system. In this rotating system, if we have a little spacecraft with an antenna or whatever, moving around, it's got some velocity in the rotating system, and it's got potential energy with respect to Earth and potential energy with respect to the Sun, the Jacobi's constant is equal to 1/2 the rotating velocity squared. And I believe by convention, it's all minused. So we get a negative sign on the kinetic energy, and we have the gravitational constant of the Sun divided by our distance from the Sun, and the gravitational constant of the Earth divided by our distance from the Earth. Whenever we come by the Earth, no matter which direction we go on it, what direction we come in at, or what direction we fly by, we're going to end up with exactly the same velocity. And the key then is to use other planets. That's the wrong symbol. That would be Mars, and it's in the wrong place, so we'll use Venus. To use other planets to change what the Jacobi's constant is to a new value, is playing games with the Jacobi's constant, and that's where the tour starts to get interesting.
On board, however, the shifted trajectory was accepted as just an extension of their flight plan. Life carried on. Day in, day out, drudgery set in. But as you get further and further away, you don't have a sun. You don't have a sunrise anymore. There's nothing you can look at and see other than points of light. There is no sense of being close to anything, so you're truly an island. You begin to accept a different life. Frankly speaking, my hunch is that they believed it wouldn't be that far. As if you could go to sleep, wake up on a sleeper train, pulling into your destination the next morning. I could have told them. I know all about it. Lord, we traveled all the way from the outreaches of the Andromeda Galaxy. Do you have any clue of how far that is? No, you don't. Let's get this clear from the start. The closest star to this planet, or should I say speck of dust, is only 4.5 light years from here. And may I say that Alpha Centauri is a couple of million degrees hot, which, I don't want to exaggerate, could be unpleasant. Now, how fast is the speed of light? Using conventional fuel, and I mean rocket fuel, to accelerate to 30% of the speed of light wouldn't take all the fuel tanks on planet Earth, or the equivalent to, say, the Rocky Mountains. It would take all the mass in the universe visible to the naked eye. That's the Earth, the Sun, the solar system, the Milky Way, all the stars in your galaxy, all the stars in the surrounding galaxies. Now, how fast have you gone so far? Well, the fastest speed achieved to date was by your Voyager space probe, which accelerated to about 55,000 miles per hour and is currently heading out of your solar system into deep space. Now, let's suppose that that is a spaceship. You are an astronaut on that ship, and you are headed toward Alpha Centauri, which I will mind you is 4.5 light years from here. Now, let's assume that you started your voyage 20,000 years ago. This is the time of Cro-Magnon man, Paleolithicum cave paintings in the south of France. You're hunting bison, rhino, woolly mammoths, and you're speeding along at 55,000 miles per hour for another 10,000 years. Now you're at Neolithicum. Mankind begins agriculture, domesticating animals, sheep, goats, horses, pigs. And when I say pigs, I mean breeding domesticated pigs. This was mankind's first arch sin. Why? Because in order to breed animals, you have to become sedentary. This begat settlements, which begat towns, which begat cities, which begat all the problems that will be mankind's destruction. Breeding dogs is not a sin because they'll go with you on your nomadic hunts. But pigs, that was the sin. I have diverted. The ship continues on its way for another 6,000 years. Ancient Egypt, pharaohs, pyramids, a few thousand years more, past ancient Greece, ancient Rome, and into the Middle Ages, and more arch sin. An Italian poet decides it would be a good idea to climb a mountain just for the fun of it. The Swiss didn't do it. The Sherpas didn't do it until bored 19th century English men paid them. And then they robbed the mountains of their dignity. That was a sin. The ship moves on. Declaration of Independence, World War I, Communism, World War II, Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley to the present day. Now, how far have you gone? You have accomplished just 15% of your journey to Alpha Centauri. You have, in procreating, gone through 500 generations. How could you have avoided inbreeding, rebellions, murders? Would you not just become grotesquely maldeformed freaks with no idea of where you came from or why you began the journey to begin with? And might I add that the closest star, which might be considered non-lethal, is not 4.5 light years from here. It's more like 200,000. By now, the spaceship was surrounded by deep black space. And knowing that, as I said, madness, rebellion, and murder might set in, our astronauts, trying to prevent that, devised a way to read each other's mind. Like this, they were able to maintain their equilibrium. Order had to be enforced. And that's what we had to do as well. And now here they are doing the very same voyage we had done, only in reverse. Now, these images came much later from the ship. Battery power was running low, and the first signs of chaos became visible. Something had to be done to drastically increase the speed of their voyage. There was a rogue mathematician who kept the secret of a breakthrough invention to himself.
You just want to keep it to yourself for a while, because for a while you're the only person on Earth who knows something. And that little secret is just so exciting. But then, of course, you want people to know, and you want people to start using it. It was something that was kind of hard to grasp and believe, because I've been looking for them for so long, and all of a sudden, it happened. And moreover, then, the theory just really started rolling, looking at asteroids, comets, and how the whole solar system is controlled in many ways by these chaotic tunnels. And this is how the chaotic transport can occur. And so here in this particular image is an artist's conception of some of these gravitational tunnels that are in our solar system, that connects our solar system. And this is a step forward from the Copernican view of the solar system, where in this image you can see that the orbits of the planets all around the sun, except that they're all separated. They're all in this very classical conception of the solar system. And now 500 years later, our picture of the solar system is slightly different, and I'm using an image from the Chartres Cathedral's floor of, and actually has the even more antiquity origin of the labyrinth, which shows that the whole solar system is really integrated. And this integration, even though in this picture, of course, is very nice and even, but actually these are generated by chaotic orbits, and it's what I call a chaotic transport that was first really discovered mathematically by Poincaré. And so let me show you how these tunnels are generated. So you start off looking from the sun towards the Earth, and here's the moon's orbit. And one of these very large orbits, that's actually larger than the moon's orbit, is what we call a halo orbit around the L2 Lagrange point of the Earth. And it is a gateway that's invisible. So each time you look at the sun or you look at the moon, you actually are looking at these gateways that are invisible. And they provide these free transport through these huge, huge tunnels. Now this little animation will show you how the tubes of the Earth and the tubes of the moon interact to provide these low energy transport, so that we can actually conceive of putting a space station around the moon's Lagrange points in either L1 or L2, where it's very easy for astronauts to get to the moon and also come back to the Earth. But at the same time, they can service missions deep in space. So for example, in this case, we're going to look at how from the L1, the lunar L1 station there, send a spacecraft to the Sun-Earth L2, which is 1.5 million kilometers. And from there, you could actually deploy it and have it go to Mars and so on. So this yellow dot represents one of these space stations. And so as we pan out, you can see that the moon's tubes, the red tubes are like the off-ramps that allow you to leave, and the blue tubes allow you to get on to the next gateway at L2. And then here, it extends out to space. And here's the Earth's on-ramp, Earth going to L2. And so that when these tubes intersect, that's when you get these free transport. But from here, you could also deploy to the other parts of the solar system. And so that this offers opportunities that we don't have from just looking at Keplerian orbits. In the same way, in the future, using string theory, we're going to have much more powerful tunnels that will allow us to perhaps go through space-time. And that then is the possibility of going to the stars and to the galaxies. Now, let me jump. And so here's the conception, like an artist's conception. First off, just the gravitational tunnels that we're working with now, but eventually, instead of planets, it will be tunnels between galaxies.
By utilizing chaotic transport, the astronauts found a shortcut, the direct route to my planet. It makes me angry, or I should rather say, upset that we didn't even know about this. Soon they would be at the doorstep of the wild blue Yonder. It was already in their sights. There it lay, covered by a crust of ice. They made preparations for landing. What makes my planet so different and beautiful is the sky there. The sky is frozen. Just thinking about it makes me homesick. Leaving the ship behind, they cut through the ice and found themselves descending into an atmosphere of liquid helium. And what makes it even worse for me is to be so far away, watching human beings exploring my world. And I could take in these images raw, just as they were recorded by the camera. And I can hear the sound of the wild blue yonder. This was home to me. I should also tell you that the other thing that makes my planet so beautiful is its wildlife. The creatures would always speak to you. They'd try to make contact. And now they're sad because they're left alone.
bëgg naan ndax mën nga ma may ndox ma naan sama biir bi tey sax dara newu ci ndax yow mën nga ma sax may ci loolu nga yore di lekk xiif baa ngi may gaañ xiif 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 baa ngi may gaañ 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 baykat bi goona bay am ca diwlin gerte la woon sàmmkat ba sàmmi woon am ca soow gàncax gaa ko waral rabbkat bi rabbi woon am ca
And here I see that your astronauts either ignored them or rejected them or did not treat them with respect.
dafa rafle
After a first day of exploration, they began to warm up to the idea of a colony on this planet. Sure, it looked inhospitable, but compared to what they saw from the Galileo space probe, it seemed to be a reasonable solution. What would a colony look like? Digging tunnels or caverns underground, building a big dome, some sort of protection from the chaotic flow of particles?
Oh, well, in all these systems, it turns out that if you look around us, the universe, chaos is not a negative thing. It actually allows us to conserve energy in many ways. And so in this particular, the interplanetary superhighway concept, chaos is extremely important because that's what generates these very free and inexpensive transports. Part and parcel with space travel is really the colonization of space. And in the mid-20th century, our concept of how that would happen might be we would build a large force field, a dome of some type, over some planet where, or some floating island, underneath which would be a giant Amazon-type forest, a jungle of some sort. But the jungle is not really where human beings, at least not humans today, want to live in. So the ideal environment might be something like a shopping mall in space, because you have everything from stores that you can shop at, places to go, gym and aerobics, bars, entertainment. You could shop all day long, and or there'll be working places. So this might be for the future the perfect space colonization paradigm.
Shopping mall? I could have told them. We had a similar plan, but you saw it didn't work. Where are the shoppers, if I may ask? Where are they? It makes me so sad to think of all that merchandise sitting there unsold. And what makes me even more sad is that my planet started to die hundreds of years ago. And here they are, seeing this as a potential replacement for Earth. They began to map out specific, suitable locations. On the second day, they ventured down into the low-ceilinged basements of my planet. They hoped to find the ideal place to install sewer pipes, electric cables, and an air supply system. And after they were done with the cellars, They consulted their compasses, which led them to explore our big valley and the sky above it. And this area we used to call the cathedral, the Blue Cathedral. Now, it was time to return home, back to planet Earth. What they knew was that they could use this portal as a tunnel of time. This was a difficult process, and it took patience. Each astronaut would, in turn, have to pass through this tunnel, and by doing so, have to dissolve into particles and subsequently into pure light. Now, back in their world, it took time for the astronauts to reassemble and morph back into human form. They believed that they were somehow back on Earth, and that they were only 15 years older. But their existence back here was just an illusion. What really happened was this. They had not been out there for 15 years. They had moved so fast through the tunnel of time that it had actually become a parallel voyage, and on Earth, 820 years had passed. They began to see their planet in a different light with different possibilities.
We envision the day when a lot of humanity will be living outside of planet Earth. They will be working in other places, maybe Mars, and maybe they'll be working on asteroids, that we will have already moved to the vicinity of Earth so that we can mine them and we can take care of their resources. And then the Earth will become more of a protected national park of sorts of humanity. Humanity will preserve our planet as a pristine, protected area for humans to come, perhaps to spend vacation. You spend 6 months working in some other place, and after you gather enough money, you could come and spend some vacation in a nice beach on planet Earth.
And when they made it back, 820 years later, this Earth had no people left. It was waiting there as a national park. This plateau was the landing site, as there were no more airfields, no towns, no bridges, no dams, no money, no banks, no time, and no breath. It had returned to its pristine beauty. It was prehistoric again. And this is what it looks like.
the